in a little bit because there's a lot that you have contributed regarding the IG. If you support the decision by the National Assembly to approve the appointment of Douglas Kanji as the next Inspector General of Police. I'll be sampling a few of your comments in just a little bit. But let's bring you back to studio because Nelson Amenya is staying with us. But I'd like to give you some context because CS for Transport, Davis Chirchir, was in Parliament, in the Senate, and he was questioned before the Senate Committee on Roads, Transport and Housing. And among the questions, the senators wanted answers at how the government settled first on Adani, why the government shouldn't cancel that deal at this stage. There's been a lot of uproar about this deal. Why the tender was not open to competitive bidding, and Adani's shareholders and feasibility report on Adani's background. That are some of the questions that the Senate wanted to know from the CS. The committee also wanted the government to come clean on whether the deal has already been signed, because there's a lot of, it's been signed, it's not been signed, we are at the formative stages, we are at stage number, whatever number, and it's not gone through. So they wanted the government to come clean whether the deal has been signed or not, and they're just covering the public's eyes, and this is already done because there was even talks about a committee that had been sent to India that was doing the negotiations, and that Senate committee also questioned how Adani had access to exclusive pictures of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, including the satellite areas. They're wondering how Adani had. My guest tonight just said that they even had an office at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Documents submitted by the committee also show that concerns were raised by Kenya Airports Authority about the deal and its board meeting in June, and the board meeting's resolutions were ignored. Now, minutes of the board meeting submitted to the committee show that the June meeting, the board pointed out that the deal had attracted a lot of interest from certain quarters in the government, making it difficult to be implemented. And I quote that the meeting, and this was from the board meeting minutes. It was noted that the project had attracted interest from government and it's difficult to continue with its execution. Reads the board meeting 6th, 2024, number 6 of 2024, submitted to the committee. So there's a lot of concerns about the Adani deal, but the person who blew the lead on this is with us tonight, and that is Nelson Amenya. Nelson, thank you so much for staying with us. I'd like to ask you a question that a lot of Kenyans are asking tonight. When you left the country for France, I will assume that you passed through the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and you saw the state of that airport. Now, an express question is that, don't you think that there is genuine need for improvement of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport?
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Yes, it's true that when I left Kenya for France, and actually I was in Kenya just recently in May, and the state of JKIA is wanting, but it's not that we lack the capacity. And secondly, the things that are wrong at JKIA is just basically lack of maintenance, because even though we need upgrade, the existing facilities need to be working properly. The existing facilities need to be up to standard. And then when we are talking about upgrade and expansion, it's not maintenance procedures that we talk about, but when you look at JKIA today, it's in a sorry state that is as a result of poor management and allocation of funds that are not really being used in the right way. Like, for example, I would give an example of the leaking roofs. Do you know that there was a tender of about 1 billion Kenya shillings that was issued to a Chinese firm for them to repair the roofs? And the first time they were given this tender was in 2020, I believe. And then when CS Murkomen was in power, they were also called again, and it was single sourcing. It wasn't competitive bidding.
Yes.
So this is another malpractice. And this Chinese firm, they obviously did a shoddy job the first time. And then the second time, now they did a shoddy job and they were still paid 1 billion Kenya shillings. So it's mismanagement that has led JKIA to the point of, where it is today. And that's why we are in dire need of an upgrade, and a new terminal. But my third point is that, yes, we need an upgrade of JKIA, but it has to follow the correct due process of the law as envisioned in the law. If it's a PPP project, then it has to follow the PPP Act of 2021.
Okay.
It cannot be that, okay, it's an emergency, let's quickly do this. I used to work in a company in Kenya, and even if something is an emergency, you have to follow how the procedure, the policy of the company goes, even if it's an emergency. So they cannot tell us, we are going to be not competitive because Kigali and Addis are building new airports. So let's quickly single source a company.
Let me stop you, Amenya. This was a PIP.
Yes,
it was a PIP. There was no bidding. There was no interest from anyone. It was a PIP. It was a private proposal made to the government.
There was interest. There was interest by other companies who were locked out.
Like which company had interest in the improvement of JKIA and that was locked out?
Well, you saw in the news this company from, I think, South America. There are others from Singapore that were interested in bidding, in the bidding process, or in giving their own PIPs, but they were not considered. We don't know why they were not considered. Why did they choose Adani? This is the reason. And another point is, if you're going to procure something for yourself, will you go into the market and pick the most untrustworthy vendor or seller in the market and choose him and say, okay, this is the guy I will work with? Or even if it's, let's say, a plumber, you will not go to a plumber who has a bad reputation. And just because, this guy maybe has the right equipment, you say, this guy has the right equipment, let me go to him. No, you will choose a guy that has a good reputation in the market. It's the same thing with what government has done now. They have gone in complete disregard of integrity issues, all the scandals that are following Adani. Even in India itself, they did not look at the integrity issue, which is actually one requirement in the PPP Act of 2021, that the company that is being given the tender or that is being chosen should not have any active court orders in the last 5 years. Adani today has court cases ongoing even up to now.
You have court orders where you sit today, barring you from making some statements online or even on television, and it's a thin line we are walking tonight. Does that mean you're guilty? Because that is the point you're trying to make, that because of court orders against Adani, they should have not gotten this opportunity to upgrade Kenya's airport. Don't you think
it's not court orders, it's court cases.
Court cases. So court cases may be active, but doesn't stop them from doing business. But let me come back to our point tonight. So this is a PIP that the government must have registered from Adani's own papers. It shows in 17 days it was approved. I want to take you back to something that we discussed here with lawyer Willis Otieno last week. And the upgrading of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport has been in the works for the longest time, probably more than 10 years. Don't you think it's time that this process began?
It's normal. I mean, if you look at other countries, this is normal for public procurement, and especially for sensitive assets like JKIA. This is completely normal. I can give many examples of countries where, this kind of tender took years, like 10 years, 15 years, but eventually they got the right person to do it through bidding process. And by the way, Adani are operating in India. In India, they are mandated to go through a competitive bidding process. So why is it that in Kenya they don't want to go through this competitive bidding process?
Okay.
And in India, they're doing it.
Proceed.
Yeah, so I'm saying, I've answered your question. And Just to come back to the discussion we had.
Yeah, you think this should have been a competitive process that was not undertaken. But let me ask you this. These documents fell in your hand, whatever way they fell. Are you the one who shared these documents with politicians?
Yes, I'm the one who shared them. Nobody knew anything about this deal, even Senator Onyonka, except Aaron Cheruiyot, who is the broker in this deal, and he was actually the one who went to India.
How do you know? How do you put Aaron Cheruiyot's name as a broker? How do you know he was a broker? How do you ascertain that he was a broker in this deal?
Because he went to India and met Adani, and they're the ones who brought Adani to Kenya.
Is there a document in support of what you're saying tonight? That they met Adani
and document for that. There's no document for that because it's done in a clandestine way. It's like you heard about this CS who was caught with 200 million in Dubai. Of course, there is no evidence. It's a fact that there was someone who was caught, but of course they will deny it because there is no evidence.
So you are not in India. Sorry, I'm playing the devil's advocate. You are not in India. There is no document that showed that these people went and met Adani. There is no evidence that they came to Kenya. They're the ones who brought Adani to Kenya. Yet you're putting them right in the mix. How would you know? There's no document. You are not with them. Because a lot of Kenyans tonight think that you have a sinister motive with this project. You are not genuinely coming out. Perhaps there's someone behind you who is supporting you and giving you all these things that you're saying online and all these names that you're throwing around. There's that quite feeling. It's divided when you look at what Kenyans are saying about this.
You know, Ken, okay, it's fine you're playing the devil's advocate. But let me ask you, I have with me documents here that even the PPP committee raised issues about this deal. ALG, their report conflicted with the report of Adani. Even if I had ulterior motives as to why I am exposing this deal, the fact remains that it's a bad deal. It stinks. For example, the PPP committee, they were asking, why is Adani not proposing a new runway while the transaction advisor, ALG, they actually advised on a new runway by 2035. Adani is not going to touch our runway until after 2028. Even the new terminal building is not going to be ready until 2029. And something else, they are going to increase the airport fees of JKIA by 52% with no upgrade. The way JKIA is today, if Adani takes over tomorrow, the fees go up by 52%.
By more than half.
There is no change. The passengers will not see any change. The airlines will not see any new change, but they will have to pay more by 52%. Do you want to tell me that we will still be competitive like we are today? No. So you cannot question the motives behind this and say because we don't have evidence that these people were involved, then we cannot talk about the deal. No, it's like putting the most important issue outside and trying to focus on the sideshow. We need to focus on the bigger issue here, and it's this deal, it's the agreements of this deal, the terms of engagement of this deal that are important to us, and everything else is just sideshows.
Okay, I get you. My concern is we are on a show tonight that you want to name drop without evidence. But I agree, it may look like sideshows, then we have to agree that we will stick to the Adani deal. Because so long as we have no evidence, Nelson, tonight, to put these names on the table and for them to defend themselves on the table, I think we should not name drop. However, the substance...
They should come out and say I'm lying.